This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first.
And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on the Huddle Sports Network. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Got lots to talk about here on this week's episode, including our top story right here. The Pistons have officially hired New Orleans Pelicans general manager Trajan Langdon as their new president of basketball operations, and they officially fired general manager Troy Weaver like a couple weeks ago. Like we pointed out from a report that the next team president would fire Troy Weaver, and so it has happened. That report nailed it on the nose right there.
Well, to clarify, it said he would be given the clearance by owner Tom Gores to whether or not he could fire Weaver. We just didn't know whether or not, that the decision had been made yet, based on the fact that it had taken so long, and like I said, it seemed like Weaver was hanging out. Whistling in the wind, much like everyone else, just trying to figure out what was going to happen. But finally, we finally got word, the confirmation came down, and the needed and necessary decision happened, and it was to happen for the benefit of the future of the franchise and the organization going forward. This had to happen. You cannot have a general manager whose tenure so far, in totality that we saw in the 4 seasons in Detroit, cannot have a tenure where each season is progressively worse than the last. You cannot have a general manager's tenure and go down to where you have consecutive losing seasons where each of your win totals decrease in each season, where you win no more than 23 games in the season, where you, over the 4-year tenure that we saw with Troy Weaver, saw the team go 74 and 244. That is beyond dreadful. That is beyond awful. It speaks endless. My goodness, just there's so much that you can go on how just completely inept that speaks to how you are as a franchise. Now, granted, you did have some positive decisions. You did draft Kate Cunningham, who essentially you had the number 1 pick. Of course, you're going to do that. Any reasonable person would have done that. But you also managed to find a Jaden Ivey. You managed to find Isaiah Stewart. You managed to find a Jalen Duren, an Asar Thompson. On paper, these were good players, good pieces that could be used as something, as a team that would progressively try to, make itself more and more into a better team year after year. But again, there was regression, not progression. And the case and example why we saw that regression. Well, there was other things that Troy Weaver had done with his draft choices, such as drafting Killian Hayes over Tyrese Halliburton, such as, making choices with regards to certain not draft picks, but trades in terms of constructing the roster around certain stars. Yes, he drafted Sadiq Bey, but then guess what? He also traded him and didn't get next to nothing out of value out of that. You got James Wiseman after you already given up the draft capital necessary to select Marvin Bagley. And again, that worked out as well as you expected it to work out. And I just can't keep escaping the fact that, hey, once you saw the fact that things were progressively getting worse, and in terms of how Weaver presented himself, in terms of body language, what aura, however you want to describe it, it just was not a good look overall for the franchise. And frankly, this was a needed move and a necessary move.
Exactly. It was just a terrible look, might I add. So Troy Weaver's gone. Trajan Langdon is in. Who will the next general manager be? Who knows?
Who knows? I will tell you though that it may be someone who has familiar ties to Trajan Langdon. I believe it was reported by both Shams and by James Edwards in The Athletic that the Pistons are currently talking to Michael Blackstone. He is the current vice president of basketball operations, I believe, with the New Orleans Pelicans, who, of course, Langdon just came over from. So it wouldn't surprise me to see that position be a potential opening spot for Langdon to bring over his number 2 guy over to Detroit. So that will be one name to look out for, Michael Blackstone.
Michael Blackstone, indeed. Man, that would be a good name right there.
I'll say this, I'll say this about Tom Gores. There's a lot of negative things that can be said about him, but I'll say this in terms of giving credit as the type of sports owner that he's willing to spend money and he's willing to make decisions that if he feels, or at least he shows or sees that the public is wanting to see this happen, he's going to try to do his best to appease to that sort of portion of the fan base. So I'm willing to give Tom Gores credit on that. There's a lot of things you can criticize him for, but I think for this is something that he deserves his kudos for.
Yeah, me too. So he took action by bringing in Trajan Langdon, and guess what? Langdon told Weaver to GTFO because he's not going to take that anymore. Weaver especially deserves it because of him threatening a fan in the stands, especially.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like I said,
his bad record.
Public persona just seemingly to continuously get worse with each passing year, which was lockstep with how the team was getting worse with each and every year. It was only a matter of time. So it was it was definitely time to make this move.
Absolutely. Want to mention in other news, former Lions defensive tackle Isaiah Buggs was arrested and charged with animal cruelty, and we'll segue to the Lions OTA report up next. But Isaiah Buggs previously played with the now back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, and now that happened.
Well, was signed to them, and unfortunately, while he was a tremendous player and teammate over here, there's no excuse for this type of actions, obviously. I mean, I think when you see the charges or see animal cruelty, you think back to the Michael Vick situation. And if players had obviously, you would think players have studied or at least heard of that situation to know, hey, don't put yourself in a similar type of spot. Unfortunately, it seemed that Isaiah Buggs did not get the memo. Why he was participating in his activities, I don't know for sure. If you have to read the full report or detail or see his explanation or motive behind this, but yeah, just not a good look and not a smart look, I would say, first and foremost.
That clarifies that not all players got that Michael Vick memo. Speaking of the Lions, the organized team activities report, let's get to that. We've been hearing about Jameson Williams trying to make an impact at wide receiver after his first 2 years. The injury, the drop passes, but he's looking to. But he's been looking to improve, and so he has with his 2 touchdowns in San Francisco in the NFC Championship game, like we mentioned several times before in the past.
Yeah, we mentioned before that this is a chance for him to get a full offseason to get acclimated and fully gelled together with Jared Goff and the rest of the offense to where he's prepared to not just be around for the full season, but play in the full season. Let's not forget the first 2 years. Yeah, you mentioned his injury of him not being available for most of that first year, but since he was recovering from it, since he tore his ACL in the national championship game, but also the second season was delayed, of course, with the 6-game suspension that he had to serve through the gambling policy that he had violated at the time. So knowing that there's no distractions of any of that variety of any kind that's preventing JMO from getting the development necessary for this spring and for this upcoming summer, yeah, it has many believe and expecting, yeah, he's going to make a full breakout jump especially the fact when you consider, they did lose Josh Reynolds, and now they probably want to see how defenses are going to react to seeing how not just Amon-Ra St. Brown works, but also the new threat of Sam Laporta. So that's going to open up a spot to where if you're JMO, you're going to expect to see more balls thrown your way, more plays drawn up for you. It's up to you to make that impact. So I think he understands that. That's why we mentioned some of his quotes last week about, or at least from Dan Campbell's standpoint of seeing JMO as a man on a mission. And from his attitude and from his mindset of how he sounded when talking to the media, you could sense that. Definitely about wanting to prove himself. Now, as far as this week, there was more words from other players, or at least from noteworthy player. An example, Aiden Hudson was mentioning about how this week, was mentioning of how the confidence that this team has after the season that they've had last year, and now, of course, knowing the expectations of not just that they've set for themselves, but everyone else is now around them is setting and saying, hey, you got to try to get back to that point, try to get to the Super Bowl. They are welcoming that expectation, and Hutchinson, like I said, Hutchinson has been saying that the confidence level is at an all-time high. So that speaks to regards to the mentality that seems to show throughout the rest of the team. It's not just make believe. It's not something contrived. This is a full up, system and method that the team has bought into from top on down, and you always want to see that. In terms of what was going on in terms with the rest of the players, I'll stay with the defensive line and saying that, according to some reports, the defensive tackle Chris Smith, who was a second-year player, I believe he was drafted. He played at Harvard when he was in college. He was on the practice squad last year. He got some reps with some of the first team starters. He split some time with Levi Onwuzurike and Liam McNeil as well in terms of that rotation. This is due to the fact that DJ Reader was not available, so that's opened up a spot and some time for other players to get those type of snaps in to see what the team is working with. So good on him. Hopefully we'll see if that pays off should and when he's needed in terms of necessary depth or rotation. We'll see how that goes. I was very impressed to hear and see that Terrion Arnold, the vaunted first-round pick that we made this year, continues to stand out, continues to make plays and make good impressions. I think it was detailed that he had a go route where he went one-on-one with J-Mo. He was in step with him the whole way, and he picked off the throw that was thrown by Goff that was intended for J-Mo. So very, very good showing by young Terrion Arnold. Yeah, I'd be giving him a round of applause too. And to round it all off with what I've been hearing and seeing and reading, I think one noteworthy press conference this week was from Ben Johnson, who made his comments about why he was staying in Detroit, why he turned down offers, why he was feeling a certain way about wanting to stay in Detroit, and also speaking about certain things that was spreading around the media regarding his name about he mentioned about false narratives that were coming out about him after he turned down the job for the Washington Commanders. We heard about the whole deal of how the team was in flight en route to meet with him. And I guess they must have found out either mid route or right after the plane touched down in Detroit that no, he was going to be staying with the Lions. So after that, then you start to hear some of these narratives and stories come out that seem to paint Ben Johnson in a negative light for some reason, to some degree. So Johnson spoke on that, called those false narratives, but he mentioned that he's very comfortable and happy with his decision. When he sleeps at night, he knows the truth of the whole matter, and he knows that he made the right choice. He mentioned about also wanting to wait for the right opportunity to want to be in a place to where you're not going to get uprooted and fire yourself within 2 or 3 years, because it seems to be always a revolving door within a 3 to 5 year window of hey, there's always some head coaching spots opening up. We saw that last year when his name was up for consideration. We saw it again this year. It's likely going to be the same again for next year. So for Johnson, it's all about finding the right team, the right spot, and the right situation. I wouldn't have been surprised to see him potentially go for the Chargers job had it not been for Jim Harbaugh sweeping in and taking that. That could have been an interesting prospect. But I think it comes down to which team is he comfortable with being around that has the right structure with the front office, the right roster setup, and also more importantly, what quarterback that he entrusts that can run this offense the way he sees fit. So that's all what it's going to come down to for Ben Johnson. Until that point, he's going to be feeling right happy and comfortable right where he is in Detroit. Because as he said himself, he thought about this quote that Dan Campbell had said to him or had said to the team in 2021 about getting through the dark days, getting through the Arctic in order to see the sunshine. Well, in Ben Johnson's words, he wants the sunshine just a little bit longer.
Well, he wants to win a Super Bowl.
Exactly. That's that unfinished business mentality that you seem to get, or the vibe from not just him, but from players, from Dan Campbell, from everyone else on the team, from coaches to players, top to bottom.
Exactly. So, anything else to add before we move on to Tigers?
That just about covers it from my end. If anything comes up that I might have missed this week, I can easily throw it in for next week. But for now, things are looking pretty good.
Nothing on my end either. The Tigers split their doubleheader with the Pittsburgh Pirates at Comerica Park, and then they split the 4-game series with the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park. And then earlier tonight, they beat the World Series champion Texas Rangers 2-1 at Globe Life Park in Arlington. Jake Rogers provided both Tigers runs with 2 solo shots to left field. Tarek Skubal got a no decision. So did Nathan Eovaldi. Bo Brisky, three scoreless innings, and he got the win in innings 7 through 9. That's impressive. Got to hand it to him.
Yeah, especially in a ballpark that's known for producing quite a bit of offense, as Texas does. And like you said, against the defending World Series champions to boot. Another quality start from Skubal, who, by the way, he rebounded from his first loss against Kansas City with a terrific start against the Pirates. He gave 7 innings, pitched 3 hits, only 1 walk, no runs on 8 strikeouts, and he followed that up tonight with another quality start, 6 innings, 1 earned run on the homer gave up, but only 2 walks versus 6 strikeouts. But to give that kind of quality start in Texas, in that ballpark, I'll take it every single time. And frankly, all you needed was minimal run support, and you got it from none other than the Texas native himself, Jake Rogers, providing the timely hits, the timely home runs that was necessary to win this game. And frankly, the Tigers needed it because they were in a bad stretch where they were just losing nonstop. They had gotten swept by the Royals. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the fact that they put on those electric blue City Connect jerseys. But all of a sudden they won 3 out of 4 out of the Jays. You saw them winning a 14-11 slugfest in one of them, where despite the fact that there was multiple blown leads throughout, they persevered. Matt Vierling hit 2 home runs, including the walk-off in the bottom of the 9th. And then you continue that luck with the City Connect jerseys against Pittsburgh, the way they had an offensive output there. Managed to split that series after one of those games was postponed due to weather. And then they followed that up, like you mentioned, by splitting the series in Fenway, to where you saw enough offensive output from certain players, including some players that had recently been called up from the minors, like Akil Baddoo. He had a homer in one of the games. I believe it was in the first game of the series.
Solo shot the other way over the Green Monster, for God's sake.
Exactly. That's what you wanted to see from him after spending all that time down with, I think it was either Erie or Toledo, one of those two. It was good to see that back from him. You want to have that type of sneaky power, I would say, in the lineup. It was also good to see in their other win where they won in extra innings, seeing guys like Ibanez and Javi Baez of all people leading an offensive rally in the 10th inning with clutch hits.
A two-run double after coming in 0 for 4 in Sunday's game. 8-4 in 10 innings in a win. Wow.
Yeah, and trust me, you need moments of perseverance like that in terms of building character for yourself and for the team in general. And I think also there's one thing of note that from that Sunday game that went in extra innings in Boston, Spencer Torkelson did not play. He did not play at all. In fact, when it was time to call for a pinch hit batter, AJ Hinch decided to go with someone else instead of Spencer Torkelson. So that should speak to you on how things have gotten out of hand for Torque and how bad his play has been as of late. So much so that when Justyn-Henry Malloy got the call up today, Torque got sent down to Toledo. And frankly,
He sure did.
That's what he needs. I'd argue should have been, but it should have been.
It's not the first time.
Nope.
Not the first time. It's time number 2, and that's just unacceptable for a number 1 overall pick in 2020.
That's very ominous. I would say, not a good omen. I will admit.
Yeah.
But at least in terms of why why the player that was called up got caught up, it was convenient. It was timely. Torque needed to get some time sent down, and what you're getting caught up with Henry Malloy, you're getting someone who had a 412 OBP and an 883 OPS in AAA ball playing for the Mud Hens, and he garnered those type of offensive stats by being such a very patient hitter at the plate, so much so to where he got 39 bases on balls to go along with 15 doubles and 6 home runs. Now, he did play designated hitter tonight. I think that was designated by choice by AJ Hinch. I wanted him to get the feel and the flow and the speed of the game up front, before trying to move him out in the outfield or whatever, because he regularly played. He was playing outfield, playing in the corners this year for the Mud Hens after playing, splitting some time between third base and outfield last year. So for this game, at least tonight, he's going to get the DH spot. We'll see where he goes or where he plays at other games down the road. But he had a couple of good at bats. No, he wasn't able to get any hits, but he looked like a steady, like the moment was not too big for him type of deal. So I liked how he presented himself at the plate. I think those type of struggles are going to come with any young player that's making their transition to the show. But
including
I'm very much right. But
2 of them tonight.
But something like that's expected if you're a young player making their debut.
Beginner's luck, right?
Right. But like I said, he did draw those 39 walks for a reason down in AAA. If we see some type of similar parallels or similar levels of production with that, showing off his patience, I'd be willing. He's going to do just fine up here.
Well, hey, give him time to develop in the show, By the way, the Tigers also released minor league outfielder Keston Hiura, who had a 713 OPS in Toledo, and designate infielder Buddy Kennedy for assignment. So I guess they both didn't develop there.
Yeah, and the Kennedy move was another roster move that had to be made, and for Malloy to get the call up.
Yep, that's true. So one last note from Hooked on Hockey magazine on Facebook and hookedonhockey.com. The Chicago Blackhawks were holding internal discussions to try to take Red Wings forward Patrick Kane back to Chicago and sign him to a new contract. But I don't even know what the chances are. I don't think that's significantly high. Patrick Kane has a hometown in Michigan, but he's played with the Blackhawks before. The history, according to all that history, it's all 50-50 history and his hometown and stuff. It's all 50-50 at that point.
What I would say, that if you're the Blackhawks or if you're the Red Wings, no matter which team you are, expect to enter yourself or to be a part rather of a potential Patrick Kane sweepstakes this offseason. Because I guarantee you, those are not the only 2 teams that are going to be looking to have conversations and talks with him based on the production that he gave for the Red Wings, the amount of time that he played, coming off hip surgery, despite the fact that he's he's at the age that he's at right now. He was a very much big part of the Red Wings almost making the playoffs last year. So you get that player that can give you that type of production with his experience and ability. Or ability in big time moments, yeah, he's going to be seen as a very valuable weapon in any cup contending team or any team that's trying to get to the playoffs. So in terms of teams that are maybe looking into want to see themselves at the Patrick Kane table, I can easily see, and this was reported or at least guessed upon by, I believe, maybe Daily Faceoff or another, or I'm sorry, by Winging It in Motown. Don't be surprised to see names like the Bruins, the Avs. Don't rule out the Rangers as well. Granted, this was based on a bet that was placed on BetMichigan.com that had the Red Wings as front runners to retain Patrick Kane's services, but still, in terms of what is going to take or require to bring back Patrick Kane, may require more than 1 year and may require you to pay him a little bit of money, more money than you may be willing to initially thought of spending. Daily Faceoff had mentioned that putting together a deal to retain Patrick Kane's services would require probably 2 years with at least four, or at least slightly north of $4 million. Frankly, based on what he did last year, which was seen in some instances as maybe a prove-it deal, you could say that it warrants that type of increase in terms of years and payment. But we'll see, A, if he's going to get it, and B, who gives it to him. I would still say the Red Wings should be among the front runners in that camp, but I wouldn't be surprised if he were to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and we've already discussed a few weeks ago that if the Red Wings were not to retain Patrick Kane, they could go after either Sam Reinhart and or Steven Stamkos. Right?
Yes, those were other potential options to look at for free agency, and what we'll be looking at potentially as we get closer to that July 1st date, because that's when free agency opens for the NHL. Also worth of noting, they did sign a young man, left winger from a league in the Czech Republic. I think his name is Jakob Raklovsky. I believe that's his name, Jacob Raklovsky. They signed him to a 2-year entry-level contract. This deal was announced earlier today on social media. He played the entirety of the 2023-24 season in the Czech League. And for the team that he was on, he was their leading goal scorer with 26 goals. Not to mention he had about 12 or 13 of those coming through by way of power play. And despite his age, he's only 22, going on 23 years old. He's a young player with pro experience because he's played on the Czech Republic national team and going back as far as playing with the U16 team about 10 years ago, from 2014 to 2015. So this is a young player with pro pedigree and pro experience. You wonder, once you get him through the process, you're probably going to start him out in Grand Rapids, see how he transitions there, and if all goes well, you bring him up.
Yep, pretty. That would be the pretty simple solution. That would be most expected to take him to GR, Van Andel Arena, and try out with those Griffins first. Yeah. Always got to develop your players one step at a time. And in terms of free agency, by the way, just a month away.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, what all did we learn in this week's episode?
Well, we learned that the Tigers are going to be as competitive as they can be, despite having their weaknesses and deficiencies in certain spots of their offense. As long as they have guys like Spencer Tarek Skubal giving consistent performances like that day in and day out, the team will still be good. I'm just not sure if they're going to be buyers or sellers come the trade deadline. We'll still have yet to find out about that. We also learned from Lions OTAs that the confidence is at an all-time high with this team. The mindset is focused yet simple. They know what the goal is, and they want to get to it by any means necessary. We learned from the Pistons that they are moving. They're moving at the right way, the right pace, the right path that they should be doing with this new president of basketball operations. They had to fire Troy Weaver. They did that. Now let's see what his replacement potentially can do in terms of doing a better job in constructing this team and getting things set up for the future. And what we also learned from the Red Wings is that they will not be the only team expected to contract or contact Patrick Kane for his potential services for this upcoming season. Expect to find yourselves in a potential sweepstakes for him. And also, we learned that they signed Jacob Rakowski to a 2-year entry-level contract. A young player but with pro experience, he could be someone to be seen as a potential offensive core piece in years to come.
All right. So that is all of what we learned in this installment of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Michigan_Truth, and like its Facebook page. Subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Like our videos and turn on all notifications on the bell icon. Follow it and listen to it in audio form on Spreaker. Follow me on X, Instagram, TikTok at DT2Phillips, also on YouTube at DT2Phillips, and on Twitch at DT2Phillips1984. Follow Ed Smith on X, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at EdSmith313. Business endorsements go to Athletico Physical Therapy on Woodward and Ferndale, the B4 Foundation, Cali Tickets. Call Mark Goldman at 877-225-8425, CaliTickets.com. Mark Goldman is the name. Creative Embroidery of Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. Cuts by Melanie in Lake City. I got a haircut just last week. The JC Youth Foundation, proud sponsor of the Detroit Lions Legends Youth Football Camp Annual. Let's roll with it. Rolled ice cream. Last week's flavor of the week was raspberry lemon curd. What will this week's flavor of the week be? We don't know. We'll share it to you on our Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. From their Facebook page, Let's Roll With It, Rolled Ice Cream in Cadillac. Follow them on TikTok as well at the Food Mafia LLC, and on Instagram at the Food Mafia Rolled Ice Cream. They just make great flavored ice creams. They just kick it up a notch every single time they put up a flavor of the week. Northern Star Event Rentals in Cadillac, 231-884-8195, and on Facebook, Union Barber in Birmingham and Ferndale, United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan, United Mobile Power Wash and Dry Ice Works in Southfield, and Well-Being with Catherine Palms. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast is a presentation of the Huddle Sports Network. We'll be back for our next episode in about a week or two. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips, signing off. But remember, we also always observe and detect the truth about Michigan sports, because the truth is out there. Ta-ta for now.
Take care and stay safe, everyone.